Good evening and welcome from OM System. We're really looking forward to tonight's live session. Our Ask Me Anything sessions are really popular and we really enjoy doing them. Tonight's session is on long exposure. We are going to try and keep the questions to the brief, but we will, if we have time, answer any others. Now, tonight I have two of our technical experts. The first one hails from Czech, and that's Tomas. Hey, Tomas. And there we go. Hey, Tomas, how are you doing?
Hi, Claire. How are you? Hi, everyone.
Really good, thank you. And our second TE hails from Poland, and that's Przemyslav, or PJ, as we call him. Hey, PJ. How are you?
Hey, Claire. Hello, Tomas. Everybody.
Well, it's a wonderful evening. We've had lots of rain here. We've got lots of people already joining us. And so welcome to everybody from all over the world. We have lots of people joining us from the States tonight. And we've also got lots of our regulars. Hey, there's Mike. Hey, Mike. I missed
everybody.
you.
Last minute edition.
I was just about to say, and joining us from the USA, which is what time of day is it out there, Mike, at the moment?
2 o'clock.
Oh,
2 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, yeah.
So it's the perfect session for us all, right? It's not too early and it's not too late. Thanks, guys, for joining us. I'm really looking forward to tonight's session. Should we get straight into some questions? Because we can spend lots of time saying hello to people, but that's going to take us quite a while because we've got Brazil, we've got Florida, we've got Utah, Sacramento. I mean, it is really a massive global audience, and I do love that about our family. So we're going to get straight into some long exposure questions, and please keep the questions coming. So this could be about live composite, about lifetime, about live ND, about how the sensor copes, about how the image stabilization copes, all this sort of stuff. So if you have any questions about long exposure, come and give us a shout. Okay, so the first question we're going to tackle is from Vanessa Franking, and she says, I have the OMD EM5 Mark III and want to use the live composite for painting. I can't find a remote trigger for it. Help. Okay, Tomas, I'm going to throw this over to you.
Yeah, I mean, basically, as all our cameras have Bluetooth and have Wi-Fi, they all communicate with your smartphone. So basically, the best way to actually trigger your camera, whether it's EM5 Mark II, Mark III, the new OM5 in the 5 series, or even the 1 series, obviously, they all communicate with our OMSure application. So please use this one, and you can use it as just a trigger or a live trigger. So you can actually see what the camera sees, and you would normally see it in the viewfinder or on the LCD. You can actually see on the screen of your smartphone, standing a couple of meters, from the camera itself. So yeah, this is definitely the way I would use.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we also recommend the app is because you're not touching the camera. So obviously, if you don't have a remote and the camera's on a tripod and you push down on the camera, even like a tiny, tiny fraction, then you're going to get movement, are you? So using a remote is, in this type of subject, in long exposures, is actually really, really important. So if you don't have the original OM1, as Tomas says, the app, and that's available on all platforms of phones, Android or iPhone, it's free. It's absolutely free. And it also gives you lots of things like notifications. You can do your firmware updates from it. So definitely, as Tomas says, use the OI Share app. It's actually really easy, isn't it? So, and yeah, that's really easy. So, and there's also a couple of YouTube videos on how to set up the app as well, I think. So if you go back through the back catalog, Vanessa, I'm sure we can help you there.
And you don't necessarily need to use it only for single shots, but you can use it for sequential shooting, live ND. I mean, just about anything that you can set up on the camera, you can also set in this application too.
Yeah, exactly. For some reason, I can't star the comments, which is really interesting. I normally can. It's probably me doing something crazy. We're going to go, Michelle, if you're there, can you put up Clay Bennett's comment, please, which says, shoot. Now, this is a question we had a quick look at before we came live because we had that 15-minute chat, and we said, okay, this is a bit of a deep delve question, isn't it? Because we don't really understand which pinhole lens that Clay is using. But let me read the question. It says, shooting northern lights with a pinhole lens with the understanding that activity will vary. Recommended starting point for ISO and exposure time. I mean, it's a bit of a loaded question, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really, it almost becomes, but definitely you want to open. And then when it comes to the ISO, I mean, starting point, I would probably start somewhere around 800 to 1600. And that's a guess. But that's probably where I would start and then go from there.
Okay, guys. PJ, anything to add? It's a difficult one, that one. I was not sure what camera he's using, which pinhole lens. I mean, I'm assuming
it's simple if we use our pinhole, like fisheye pinhole or 15mm, because we know aperture there. But if this is DIY pinhole, I think this will be too small, to have too small aperture to do long exposure northern light. Or if you can do long exposure like 10 days, 2 days, 3 days, maybe this is enough time to do long exposure like with pinhole lens, DIY pinhole lens.
Yeah. As I said, bit of a difficult one. What about you, Thomas? Have you got anything to add?
I was just about to say that I would not be that much worried about ISO. I mean, I can show you an example of one of the images from my ambassador, which is this one. This is very nice northern lights shot by Jaroslav Hora, a local ambassador. But the thing is that basically this image, I'm just trying to enlarge it to the full screen. Yeah, now. And this is shot at ISO 200. So, I mean, you don't necessarily need to have these extremely high ISOs and would be worrying about them. What matters is that you need to use some kind of, let's say, long exposure modes, whether it's lifetime or live composite, some of these modes. And obviously, then the exposure itself will take a couple of seconds at least. Yeah. But as for the ISO, I wouldn't go anywhere high because you probably want to shoot it from tripod anyhow, right? And the ISO itself does not really matter. And in this case, you don't want to have a noise in the buildings down there, which you can see, these wooden cottages or whatever it is.
Right. Thank you.
But we must remember, if this is DIY pinhole, like from like this cup, and you drill some small hole, you will have aperture like f64, f128. I think in this this will be problem with very
I was actually talking about the pinhole lens in this case, but about a regular, let's say, wide angle lens. And this one was shot at, I think, 12mm, so just a standard, let's say, wide angle lens. Yeah, you are absolutely right, PJ. With the pinhole, if it's just a pin in some kind of a cap, it's a lot of a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting some messages that we're getting a little bit of feedback, and we think it's coming from me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute myself. So you guys take the next question, and I will just literally mute myself and stop my cam, because this would be annoying if everybody's getting an echo for a whole hour. That's going to be very, very, very frustrating. So I'm going to just mute myself and stop my cam, and I will come back with some.
Okay, no problem, guys. So, Elaine writes, not a long exposure question, EVF on my OM1. Is it possible to set the EVF on so that I can see what my exposure compensation, aperture, and shutter speed do before I take a picture? Well, this is quite regular, right? I mean, what do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, this is the benefit of, one of the greatest benefits of mirrorless cameras is to see your exposure when you set everything. So yes, you can do that on your OM1, and it should be out of the box set up to do that.
I think Elaine, what probably your setting is, but you must have probably set it up, or somebody else who was playing with your camera said what we call SOVF, which is like simulated optical viewfinder. I can show you straight away where exactly we'll find it in the camera. Let me just turn the menu on. So basically, if you go to this gear up, the orange gear, and then you go to the live view section. So the very first thing which you see is LV mode. And this is exactly it. The standard LV mode is the thing that it actually shows you your changes in the exposure. So if you change aperture, speed, ISO, everything, all this from the exposure triangle, you will actually see the result prior shooting and taking the image. But if you have this LV mode switched to SOVF, Simulated Optical Viewfinder, then basically it actually really does simulate the optical viewfinder from the old SLR cameras. So it doesn't show you any changes in the exposure which you are doing. So please check this part of your OM1 LV mode and set it to standard. Then it should be working properly.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that should do it.
Do you use internal ND filters with external grad filters? And if not, when you would use them? Who wants? Maybe. Yeah.
Well, I would say that
I always mix.
Yeah, go ahead.
I always
PJ.
mix and ND internal ND filter, live ND with grad filter. Also, I mixed always external in ND filters with internal ND filters, because I use internal ND filters to increase dynamic range and increase quality, and external ND filter like ND 1000 to very long exposure, or ND 10,000 to longer exposure, and of course grad ND filters to increase dynamic range of scene of whole composition.
Yeah, I agree. I think it becomes a personal sort of preference on how you want to shoot, but there's definitely nothing wrong with blending for sure. The internal with the external.
Yeah, I mean, from time to time, I have to admit that I'm personally using just the live ND, which is built in the camera with no like physical filters. And I know a couple of ambassadors. Again, I just have one shot ready. It's just like 1.5 second exposure. I can show it to you. This is from Peter Bembosek when he was our ambassador who was in Galapagos.
Nice.
A couple of months ago. And this is like during a bright daylight, yeah? And he just used the live ND, and this is the final result which you can actually get. And this is, they are obviously sitting on some rocks, but this is in the sea. So all the, let's say, the white movement which you can see is just the waves coming in and out all the time. So, and it's not a long exposure, as I said, it's just like 1.5, 1.3 second exposure, but it gives you this kind of effect, obviously, with live ND. Yeah.
Nice shot.
Okay, let's see.
Here we go. How to hide yourself while light painting.
Well, that's easy. First of all, look at us. We are all in black.
In black.
You need to be
like for
either man or woman in black. You should not be bold unless you are wearing a black cap or something. And you really need to be careful about light actually hitting you if you have some skin protruding, you know. So that's one of the things. So basically, and if obviously you need to light paint in the dark, yeah. Otherwise, it's like kind of almost impossible.
And sometimes I'll carry a piece of foam core with me if I'm using, like, say, a light wand, and I don't want the camera to sort of see it. I can kind of cover it a little bit. So, you can be a little creative with that as well if you want to, say you're light painting a car and you're walking around with a wand and what have you. So, you just want to keep things dark.
And again, exactly, I can show you one example of, let's say, yet another ambassador. This is Pavel Plezinger. He's a light painting master, I call him. And he really does amazing images. This is shot in Prague, so you can see the Prague castle on the background. And in the front, cool. Basically, he is there. He's standing in the middle. But, well, you can partially see him. But he was obviously black, dressed in black, so you can't really see him. But he was standing there for a couple of minutes actually painting all this, let's say, how we call it, the globe or whatever. What do you call it, guys?
An orb. In English, we would say orb. Yeah.
Okay, so
that's cool.
This would be it. So if you are in black, I mean, you are almost invisible.
Yeah, I mean, even just exposing your skin can give you sort of flashes, can't it? So always make sure, so polar neck to here and long sleeves, definitely the sleeves more, because that's what you're using. That's going to be in the shop more, right, with the light painting tools. So definitely of dark colors. It doesn't have to be black, but sort of navy or dark green, something along those lines. I think we've cleared the echo now, guys. So thank you for being patient on that one.
Welcome back.
Hey, sorry about that.
I'm the only one not wearing the earphones now. Oh, guys, what should I do? I have some. I don't.
You feel all out of place. You're fine. It's absolutely fine. Okay, where did we get to? Let me have a look at the questions. Okay, Quentin Schwinn says, I'm interested in a creative application for high res exposure. Okay, so this is a little bit off topic again, but we will answer it anyway. If on a tripod and creating an 18 megabyte file, for example, what if one of the objects in the field is moving? You're going to get out of focus images, right? It depends how quickly it's moving, but the point about high res mode is it needs to be static, and everything that you shoot in that you're taking a picture of needs to be static. You know, the image stabilization will work to a certain point, but if you have a sheep or something or an animal moving in front of you, then obviously there will be blurred images. So you have to be mindful about your shutter speeds and how fast you're getting with that electronic shutter. So yeah, guys, any tips?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it will definitely clear up a few things that are moving a little bit. Like, you know, if you're shooting things like a waterfall, it'll actually, you can blend the water with long exposure with the multiple with the high res. You know, you shoot it like 20th of a second with high res handheld, and you can get this nice, or even the 80 megapixel on the tripod, and leaves that are moving, you know, in the wind. It does give you more of a, you know, somewhat natural look, like as if you were doing a longer exposure in the high res. But like you said, I mean, if a person's in the scene going like this, or a car's going by, or something's moving really fast like that, you will have that sort of chopped up movement going throughout.
Yeah.
And just to add maybe to what Mike says, I mean, this is exactly what you are describing, Mike.
Yep.
Basically, today you can achieve these images with our cameras via two modes, either live ND, we have just been discussing, which basically creates this kind of image depending on the, let's say, ND density which you would use. But prior, we actually had the live ND in our cameras. We had been using to achieve the same images with high-res shot. Because if you put it on the tripod, obviously the rocks do not move, you know, the leaves, which you can see, it doesn't move. So you get 18 megapixels resolution of this brilliant image. But as the water is moving, so it's slightly in different position on every of the 8 images, and then it's blended all together, then the water looks like you can see on this image. So you can use either high-res shot or live ND to achieve this kind of images.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want, like, sorry, go on, PJ, far away.
High-res shot is also very nice solution to blur people if you want to do some architecture picture in bright day and you don't have enough exposure to blur some people. You can use high-res shots. It's also help to do that.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I probably told you guys, you know, that I'm doing a project. I look after the Nordics, and whenever I go to Sweden and I stay in Stockholm, I photograph the metro. It has an incredible art installation in every station. So there are hundreds to photograph, but obviously after work, there's many people, and you can use the live ND to, like you say, get rid of people. If you want the station nice and clear, it's the perfect opportunity to just use live ND, long exposure, and of course those people disappear. So it's got uses for lots of different types of photography within that long exposure, hasn't it? So let's go on to Doug Stansfield. Doug Stansfield says, and for some reason I can't start my comment, so apologies, Michelle. Doug Stansfield said, can you explain the different long exposure options? So on top of the latest OM models, you have B, and we introduced the B section for long exposure a couple of models back now, didn't we? Previously, you had to go into manual, and then you had to feed all the way back to the bottom of the slower exposures, and there you would find live composite, lifetime, and bulb. But now we've given it its own mode place, own home place on the mode dial, which does make things a whole load easier in finding them, guys, right? So so let's talk about the 3 different live long exposure modes in the camera. So Thomas, have you got a top of screen or a back of screen where we can at least show
exactly I'm just trying to show the camera menu right now.
Perfect.
So basically what I did, I switched the exposure dial on the top of my camera to the B mode. And then what you can see down there is, if I'm switching, well, actually, my name is covering it.
There you go. Well done,
Michelle. Thanks a lot. So basically, you go to 3 modes. There's live, there's bulb is the first one. Then you've got the lifetime, and you've got the live composite mode. So you've got like these 3 modes. Basically, the bulb mode, the B mode, is the one which we have always been using since analog cameras, right?
Right.
It actually tells you that as long as you are holding the trigger, that is the time basically that the camera is shooting. But you need to keep it pressed basically all the time. This is the reason why during the analog times we were actually using those wire triggers. You probably remember them. You screw them into the trigger itself, which had a hole for it, and that this was it. So basically the same way works the B mode. While the live and what you don't see during the B mode, you don't see anything happening in the viewfinder nor on your LCD screen. So you are just exposing something, but you don't know what the result is going to be. So you see nothing on the screens. While the lifetime mode actually shows you something happening. It shows you that, for example, the fireworks are going off. So you see it in the screen or in the viewfinder. And as soon as you like the image, then you just press the trigger again. And you don't need to keep it pressed all the time. So you just press it first, the exposure goes on, and it goes on, and as soon as you like it, you press it again, and this ends the image. But bulb and lifetime, they do have for me, it's one of the disadvantages, but obviously for some shots you can use it as an advantage. And the disadvantage is that it gathers the light all the time. So the longer you shoot, the more exposed the image gets. So if you are shooting, for example, fireworks above the city at night, and the city obviously has lots of lights, and you are shooting a couple of minutes, then probably the city is going to get a lot brighter, brighter and brighter all the time. And at the end, it's going to overexpose the image.
Right.
This is the reason why our extremely clever R&D guys came with a solution, and that is the live composite. And actually, until now, we have it for a couple of years. You probably know it from all our Olympus cameras for 5-6 years ago. We are still the only ones who have this live composite mode. So you guys are very lucky to actually have this mode, because live composite never overexposes if you do the first trial shot properly exposed. So you can actually be exposing for hours and hours, and the city will stay the same all the time. So this is like the difference between bulb, lifetime, live composite.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break that down a bit. I mean, like you say, the bulb is the old way. You have no idea what's happening. You hold your finger down, everything's black until you take your finger off. It's a lot of guesswork, which is what we used to do and waste many shots and hours trying to get this way. And obviously with the modern electronic cameras, lifetime I use when I'm using my ND filter. So if I'm using an ND filter that I want to take a 1 or 2 or 3 minute exposure, then I would put my ND 10 stopper at the front of my lens, and that allows me to shoot a really, really long exposure. So if you want really high key stuff, lifetime, absolutely perfect. And now, of course, we've got live comp, which is a two press process. The first press is to give you a base exposure. The second process is the long exposure bit where the shutter is open for as long as you need it. Again, when you're thinking about all these long exposure modes, the whole time you're pressing the camera, you do need to have a remote control, because you don't want to be pushing down on the camera. We can't state that, enough. So let's talk a little bit about lifetime. So Mike, talk me through lifetime, how the process works and how that stage of the histogram and things works.
Sure. So lifetime is it's a really cool feature because it's similar to bulb, except that you're actually watching this scene appear when you press that shutter button. So now you press it once, you start the exposure, and you can watch that scene appear. You can watch your histogram building, and then you stop it when you're done. So it gives you that scene that you want. So if you're shooting something like a city at night or something along those lines, this is my favorite mode to use for that, because you can actually watch this appear. Another great thing about live time is it's a great way to cheat for live comp, because you can check and see what your starting exposure might be in certain types of shooting, like a cityscape.
Nice. Yeah. So use live timers to get your base exposure and then use that in live comp.
Yeah.
This is classic lifetime photography.
Oh, show us. Talk us
classic
through
landscape.
That's nice.
This is classic lifetime photography with ND1000 filter, also ND8 grad filter soft and polarized. This is classic setup for landscape photography with long exposure. But this picture is taken in, I think, 1 a.m. This is not good time for people. Picture like this, and I have very hard light here. Also, I can show you one more.
And what sort of exposure time was that, PJ?
I think 3 minutes, 2 minutes, something like this. This is from EM1 first generation and 9 to 18, the small lens. It's very old picture.
Nice.
Okay, we got another image coming up, PJ. Show me.
Yes, this is the same situation like when we can use lifetime. This is lifetime also with ND filter, but 200 I think, and this is also 2 minutes exposure, some waterfall in Iceland. Classic landscapes. This is nothing to add.
Yeah. Okay, so while we're talking about lifetime, Thomas, can you bring up the lifetime menu so that you can, when you go into the lifetime menu, we can actually show, there we go. So this is quite important little section of the camera, because obviously this gives you the display counts of each ISO sensitivity. And it was one of those things in the early days, I thought, I don't get it. But basically, it's about how many times your screen will refresh and give you the actual up-to-date latest image versus how much ISO you've chosen. Now, obviously, on long exposure, you do try to have the 200 organic ISO or lower if you're shooting with live with filters and things like that. So basically, if you're using a low of 80 ISO, your refresh will happen 24 times, and it does enable you to watch your exposure right the way through to the end, right, Mike?
Yeah. And I typically keep it standard, which is, I believe, 0.5. And that's just because of the type of shooting I do. So yeah.
Thomas, anything to add to that?
Yeah, actually, I will still switch to the menu, and let me just jump to the my name is still there. I don't see if I got
thanks, Christy. Okay. Thanks, Michaela. Thanks, Christy and Michaela in the background.
Okay, great. So basically, once you are, for example, in live composite mode, my favorite, obviously, then you may seem that you are not actually able to access the speed. You can access the aperture, which you can see it's 5.6, so you would use the front dial. Yep. While the back dial only lets you actually switch between the three modes: bulb, lifetime, live composite. But for the live composite, you actually need to set up the exposure time for the first exposure, and obviously the other exposures which will follow later on once you press the shutter button again. But then how do you do it? What do you need to do? Once you are in this position of the camera, of the menu, you press the menu button on your camera, and this is what gets you, what brings you here. And here you can actually set up the speed whichever you want to do. If you want 6 seconds exposure or 5 seconds exposure, whatever, you just turn it on here, press OK, and that's it basically. So you are ready to do the composite setting. Yeah.
So basically, like you say, that's your shutter speed, isn't it? That's the bit where you go in and set the timer. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Because once you are shooting, for example, the image I was just mentioning, for example, let's say that would be the evening or night city with the fireworks, for example, at New Year's Eve, then you need to have the cityscape properly exposed. You don't want it to be overexposed or underexposed. So you need to, let's say, try it out on the first image, and say, if you find out, okay, 5 seconds is too overexposed, then you go down to 3 seconds, try it again, and say, okay, 3 seconds is perfectly for a proper exposure of the city. And then this is what you would set up on the camera and go on, and you can shoot as many images as you want to.
Perfect. Anybody got anything to add, or should we go on to the next question? All good?
I can show this picture.
Oh,
this
that's
is
nice. Lovely.
Love that
this
shot.
is reason why live composite rock is the best function ever for long exposure, because in this picture, time between sunset, from what I have, this red light on the rocks, to first car is 1 hour and a half, and whole exposure is 2 hours. I can't do that picture without live composite, because normal lifetime on bulb will blow up whole images by light.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, these
shot.
are shots. Yeah, these are the shots that you really want in your back catalogue, aren't they? I mean, absolutely gorgeous. And like you say, they can be achieved many ways. Again, look at this incredible city.
That's beautiful.
Shot. It makes the noise of a city just look beautiful. Just when you think there's nothing interesting in traffic, this shot absolutely completely changes that. And again, is this a live composite shot, PJ, or is this a live?
Yes, this is live composite. This is EM1 second with 25mm pro lens 1.2. This is a situation when I can't do this picture without live composite, because it's too bright. Only live composite give me 42 seconds time because this is time between red light and green light on traffic, when I can wait for all small motorcycles driving between cars.
Love it. I absolutely love it. This is my type of shot. Absolutely gorgeous. And obviously the shutter can stay open for 6 hours, on the OM1. Yes. So you could theoretically put too much light into there. The joy about the system, when I first used the system, is seeing your images grow on the back screen and then allowing your opportunity to stop it when you feel that's exactly the point, is the most dreamiest and the most amazing thing ever, because it's so easy to overexpose this type of shot. You can leave it running and running and running. Before you know it, it's too much light and you're not getting the detail. And actually the joy of lifetime is when you've had enough and you think that's the perfect shot, you stop the exposure and there you have it. It's absolutely incredible, right, guys?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Let me just share,
yes,
just one image which exactly shows what you are saying, that you can really have it exposed for not only minutes, but let's say half an hours, and so on. And this is what you would get directly from the camera. Previously, you would have to be using some kind of, special sequence shooting, live, or how do you call it, the video where you get one image after another. What's the English expression? Time lapse. Time lapse.
Time lapse.
Yeah.
Time lapse.
And then you would have to stack all these hundreds or thousands of images in the computer. While this is what you get directly from the camera. You just put it on the tripod, turn the live composite on, and basically after half an hour or hour, you come back to the camera and you've got something like this.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
If you if you want to do picture like this and you don't want have plane for in picture, you should have application like fire radar or something like this. And when plane will come, you must put a cap on lens for 2 minutes when plane go out from the picture and you're back to live composite.
Either that, or you can always say it's just UFO, just UFO flying by.
Yes, of course.
That's a great tip, though.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next question, guys. It's from Jim Babbage, and he says, is it recommended to use a tripod with live ND, considering the image stabilization of the OM5? Okay, I'm going to take the first bit of this because that's what I use when I go to Stockholm. I am handheld with the live ND 2 to 3 seconds about, which is what I'm doing. I am leaning against the wall downstairs. It's quite dark, but I am trying to get rid of as many people, or even trying to blur the people to get the beautiful art installation. So the answer is yes. You know, if you're doing long exposures, maybe more than 2 seconds or so, then definitely with a tripod. But as I said, I can go 2 to 3 seconds hand holding. So that, I think it's pushing it to its extremes, but it can be done. So what about you guys? What do you recommend?
I've done the same thing. I haven't really used live ND on a tripod. I know that it's sort of meant for that because it does cut the IBIS, but I use the preview mode where you can actually see the effect taking place. And I think that that's what helps me to keep it a little more stable, believe it or not, because everything's shaking and you want to keep it as stable as you can. And I'm good for about a second. I drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah. The simulation mode that Mike's talking about is under the live ND settings. It says live simulation off. When you first turn it on and you look through, there's a lot of waving and moving about because the camera is giving you a simulation of what it's actually. So you can either turn it off and just go back to your usual screen, or you can use the live simulation mode, stand really still, and then you'll see what you're going to get, right? How the image stabilization is working.
Yeah, I mean, a camera like the OM5 is a camera that I like to take, just throw it in a backpack and take it on a hike. And so I don't really want to carry my tripod, my filters, all that stuff. So for me, it's the beauty of it is the high res, the live ND, all that stuff when you're out there. So
cool.
Yeah, and I have to say just one comment, and that is, Jim, you always remember that basically the wider the angle of your lens you are using, the longer exposure you are actually capable of holding, with no shakes. Obviously, the longer the lens, the telephoto lenses and so on, you need to set the camera up to slightly, let's say, faster exposure times. But if you are shooting landscapes and stuff like that with wide angle, no worry. I mean, you will always be able to keep the 2 seconds, as Claire said, maybe even more. I know guys who are shooting with 5, 8, 10 seconds exposures. And there is one special guy who's shooting 40 seconds. I never believed this unless I saw it. But he's a master of those martial arts, so he's like, his body, if he stays still, he really stays still, It's not like us.
Wow, we need to get a video of that guy. That guy sounds like uber cool. I want to see this guy.
He's from a different planet, I think.
Okay, I'm going to go to Cheryl Checkman. Sorry, Michelle, there's no little thingy for me to post it for some reason. I try to photograph an owl at night using a long exposure and night vision. However, I still have a hard time focusing on the subject and getting a decent photograph. Who wants to take this? Anybody key with this one?
Mike? I can.
Oh, Thomas, I'll throw it to you.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Okay, and then you go ahead, Mike. I just said it's like a few weeks ago we had this Zoom session with my ambassador, local ambassador. He's shooting animals, all the time. He returned from, I think, Costa Rica it was, and he was shooting a bird. I don't remember his name. I'm not a birder. Sitting on his cabin. It was night. It was at night, and he wanted to shoot it, against the moon, which was back on the sky, against this bird. And he said the only way I could focus, because he was like, it was pitch black basically. He just saw the silhouette. The only way I could focus was I just took my torchlight, or how we call this, the battery light, the light, and I lit the, let's say the bird, and I focused. That was it. Then I took the perfectly sharp image. So basically the outline of the bird was perfectly sharp. Otherwise, you could use manual focusing, obviously, with focus peaking, which is easy, especially if there is the moon on the behind, so we have some kind of contrast.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this is what I would use, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't an OM thing, is it? It's the fact that you're trying to photograph something at night and trying to focus on something. It's as simple as that. And like you say, you need to find a way to either light the subject or to focus with the tools that are in the camera. Focus peaking is the perfect option. I mean, obviously pre-focusing, if you can, is always I know obviously it's more difficult if you haven't got that set up before, but what do you think, Mike? Similar comments from you?
Yeah, I would say similar comments. I mean, the cameras are only going to focus down to so much. I think it's -6 EV on the OM1. So, you're without some kind of contrast or some kind of edge. Sometimes it does get hard to focus. I mean, again, we're photographers, so we're painting with light. But there are times you want to get something really cool like that owl at night. So if you could find any sliver of light, any sort of edge, then try to get the focus point to that so that you're in that vicinity of, where that bird is. And then also, again, like Thomas said, to maybe use a light, just a quick light of even the area where the bird is. So, that you're focused there with maybe focus peaking or with the autofocus. But yeah, it's definitely difficult. I would definitely go manual focus after I get that focus set on where I'm at.
Yeah, PJ, anything to add?
No.
Yeah,
no
same, right? Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
it's a bit of a difficult one, Cheryl, because obviously you are looking at the most difficult subjects. But like you say, if you already know where your subject's going to be, you could pre-focus, use focus limiter, and make the lens have a very short distance of focus as well. But like you say, unless you can spot it with a light or use manual focus and focus peaking, which is what we recommend.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe I can just add one
yes,
not comment, but one picture. This is a picture from a top ambassador, Peter Bembosek, and I think he has even won some prizes with this picture. But the thing I'm showing it is that basically, again, this needed to be pre-focused. Peter is describing this in some of his Zoom lessons, which he's giving. But this needed to be pre-focused first, because basically otherwise it's kind of dark, and the image is lit with steady light or still light, as well as with the flashlight at the end of the exposure, where you can see the end and then the leaf frozen. But otherwise, if you just want to shoot in the basically pitch dark, if you want to shoot this ant running around with the leaf and focus on it, you would not be able to. You really need to have it pre-focused. So you need to use some torchlight, lit the branch, focus on the branch, and then just wait, and then obviously do all the tricks with the still lights and the flash as well. Yeah.
I love it. Good stuff. Okay, we are going to answer Sikander D's question. On the OM1, what would you recommend for shooting a total solar eclipse? Wow. That's a good one. PJ, what about you? Have you got any ideas on
big
this
ND
one?
filter. Big ND filter. ND 1000, ND 10,000 maybe. ND filter is necessary to take a picture of total solar eclipse.
Yeah, and would you shoot with any of the live comp or live time or bulb, or would you just shoot?
No, I think normal one picture, maybe sequential shooting to have perfect circle, perfect ellipse on sun. But I will use all ND filters fast shutter speed, because if we try take picture of sun even on solar eclipse, in total solar eclipse, we will have enough light to use 1 per 1,000, 1 of 2,000 of the second.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, a long exposure on a total eclipse is not this subject, but PJ's answered it perfectly. It's multiple shots with a huge, strongest filter that you can get on the front to cut out the light, but allow you to have the beautiful rings that you get when you shoot a solar eclipse.
I actually just bought a filter for. I just bought a filter for that. It's about 100,000 ND.
Really?
Yeah. That'll be coming through it'll be coming through in a few months here. Yeah.
Have you got a solar eclipse due in the States then?
Yeah, we had one a couple years ago as well.
Okay.
Similar to shooting the sun. I mean, you definitely want to not stare at it. You have to wear the glasses, and but it is a little bit of trial and error because it is new for all of us. But yeah, definitely what PJ said is correct, and but it's you want your ISO doesn't really. You want to keep it low. It doesn't really make a difference because you're shooting the sun. It's so bright, but yeah, you got to play a little bit. But you definitely want that filter on there for sure.
Right.
Mike, and is it really a photo filter, or did you just order a welding glass? Welding filter glass?
You can use welding glass. You can use that. I had a gentleman sitting next to me with a welding helmet on. That works. But I made my own filter last time. But I did buy a filter now for next year. So yeah.
Yeah. Be prepared.
So get your filter now. Yeah.
Yes, before everybody they sell out, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm again looking for a video for that, Mike. That sounds amazing.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Per Lundborg says, when should bulb function be used? Well, it's a difficult question that because bulb function is on and off. I mean, I haven't used bulb since I used the film camera. Live time for me is absolutely perfect. But have you guys got any recommendations when you should go to bulb and not use lifetime? Why would you, right?
Not really. I mean, I actually honestly think that we still keep it there because of some tradition.
I know.
Because, someone might got used to it a long time ago, and then okay, we still have it. But otherwise, there are features like lifetime, live composite, which are much more advanced. So I wouldn't use bulb today.
Yeah, I agree.
One of our ambassadors says bulb is only to faster action. When you put finger on the shutter speed and you won't have faster action when some big light like lightning or fireworks or something will blow up now, and you won't react very fast, and this is when you can use bulb.
Okay. Yeah, as I said, I mean, I haven't used it since the 80s because lifetime, I want to see exactly what's happening, and there's no blank shots, there's no guesswork. There's no waiting 30 seconds to look to see that you didn't get what you wanted to get. Use lifetime. It is so much easier. We had the asteroid shower here last year, and we have it every year, August the 14th or whatever, mid-August, and the asteroid shower comes over, and I just just leave it running. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. And but as you mentioned lightning, let me just bring this yet another
nice.
Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah. We actually have, or not we, but you guys sitting behind your screens, you have the cameras which actually have like two options or two ways how to shoot this type of, let's say, lightning images. One of them obviously would be live composite. You just put the camera on the tripod, you direct it to in the way where the storm is happening, and then you just either look on the screen or you are sitting in your living room looking at your smartphone via the remote application, And once you and this is obviously quite a couple of lightings mixed up together. It's not just one lighting. So during the live composite mode, you see light, how we call them, lightnings happening one after another. And once you like the image, then you say, okay, stop, and you press the trigger, and you have this type of image. But if you just want to catch like one lightning in the image, you can also use the function which is called Pro Capture, which you all know from, let's say, we always present it for the bird shooting, for animal shooting, and for some fast action, which will happen, but you never know when exactly. But this exactly Pro Capture would be for shots like this, but only with the one lightning happening there.
Nice. Yeah, I've never thought, well, I mean, somebody told me, I think maybe on one of these sessions about Pro Capture and lightning, and I was like, yeah. I've never used it, but actually, like you say, it's all about timing, and Pro Capture can completely alleviate that option. Or if the shutter's already open, again, timing is of a it doesn't even, you don't even come into it because it's capturing the action all the time. Good stuff. Okay, we got a few more questions to go. It's nearly been an hour already. Can you believe it? So I'm going to plow quickly through some questions. Jane Moore says, where did the histogram come up when using lifetime? I am assuming she says, where does the histogram come up on lifetime? And it is the top left-hand corner, right? In the OM1. I assume if it's a previous model EM,
I believe
it's along the middle, bottom left. So it's changed its height, right? If you're using OM1, EM1, yeah. So Jane, you should see it. If you can't see it, you need to press the info button, because the info button will scroll through your screen viewing options, and it may be that you've accidentally switched it off. So when you're in lifetime and you press the shutter to start shooting and there's no histogram, that's because you just need to press info a couple of times and scroll through the information screen to get you to the right place. So that should be that one. Okay, Terry Day says, with very long exposures, what do you recommend regarding power? Do you advise external power source, i.e. for star trails? PJ, you can take this one.
I have power bank. Every power bank, if you, of course, you have OM1 or EM1 Mark III, you can use power bank or EM1X with USB power delivery. You must remember this should be power bank with minimum 24 watts of power. And you can use power bank as external power source. But you must remember also our camera have some nice feature. When your battery after 3 hours long exposure will die, or after 4 hours, camera will save live composite in this moment when battery will be over.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult one, that one, isn't it? Because, you know, if you can afford a power bank, there are so many different varieties on the market. We do recommend you get what they call a PD, which is a power delivery, so that you've got really decent, even voltage running at all times. There's a beautiful, even current running, because if you sort of go a little bit cheaper, the current tends to be a bit up and down and a bit unstable. So, you know, you're talking about a couple of €1,000 or dollars on your camera, pounds on your camera. So if you can get something that's a power delivery version, that's what I would recommend. Anybody want to add to that, or do they agree with that?
Yeah, just that they're getting cheaper and cheaper all the time. I mean, I've just seen a 30,000 milliamperes power delivery power bank, which costed around €70. I mean, like, whoa, really nothing, you know. So
yeah,
you can get power delivery power banks, I mean, for very, very reasonable prices today.
Yeah. And of course, with UHS, with USB-C and everything seems to be going that way, it then does fit with your laptops and your phones and all the other things. So they seem to be starting to get a bit more standardized, which is even better. So Terry, I hope that answers your questions. Okay. Lindsay Whelan says, hi, how long of a shutter speed do you need to blur the water or people, or is it just a matter of testing? Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely a personal taste as well, because with people, sometimes you want them slightly blurred, but you still want to see that there are people there. The great type of shot is when you're in a train station and there's a static lamppost, a static train, and then you have maybe somebody on the phone, so you're going to get them completely static, but the people moving around them. And for me, you literally only need a 30th of a second. You don't need to be going to 2 or 3 seconds, because that's too much. So actually, a 20th or a 30th is a really nice way of seeing people, but not. So it is a little bit of testing, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of people think you need a super long shutter speed for things
Right.
like moving water to slow down that water, make it milky. And really, 15th of a second, 20th of a second, 10th of a
Yeah.
second, you could start getting that effect. So, and then it's just a matter of how much light is coming in. Do I need an ND filter? Do I need live ND? So again, it really depends on what you're doing with the water or with people, how much you want. I mean, there's daytime long exposure where you can go for hours and hours. So it's really personal preference on what you're looking for and the photograph you're doing. But yeah, trial and error is definitely, or testing is definitely a part of it for sure.
And I would say the busier the waterfall, as in, the more more of a burst of a waterfall, it's actually less time. If you have waterfall that's quite flat, or maybe a stream that's running quite slowly over rocks, then you would use slightly longer time. So
Yeah,
it's also about the action that's going on at the time, right?
Yeah, totally. I can show you maybe two images where there is
please do.
one is shot by, I think this is like 3 seconds exposure, and you
I
can
know who
see
shot
that
that.
basically
Lovely.
the sea against surrounding the rocks is slightly blurred already, but it's not like
Right.
too much blurry. Yeah. And then if you let me just show you another image, which will be much longer exposure, and that is this one, for example. And this is already 40
Nice.
seconds
very
exposure.
nice.
This
Yeah,
is 40
Nice.
seconds. You can see the sky. I mean, the clouds on the sky already blurred as they are moving, and down the water, it's like almost misty,
Right.
But it's just because the exposure was extremely long. Obviously, with the live ND plus the regular ND filter, again shot by the ambassador.
Yeah, exactly. And again, think about the black and white versions of these. When you start shooting really long exposures, you can then start doing these really high key type of long exposure where they get quite arty, and then you can flip them to black and white. I've done quite a few of the Brighton Pier, which is all, there you go.
Oh, nice.
Wow, that is nice. That is nice. Again, beautiful in black and white, because it sort of almost loses, or it covers up some of those things that in a sort of landscape image normally have to be absolutely spot on, but you can get away with a bit more, I think, which I absolutely love. This is gorgeous. Okay, so let's just talk quickly about live ND versus ND filters, because we haven't talked about that. Now, with live ND, you have a maximum 60 seconds, right, to take your shot. And then obviously, if you want longer than a 60-second exposure, then you would need to go and get some external ND filters. And the 825, which is our latest from the OM range, is f4, so it's perfect for landscape. But also, you can screw filters straight onto the end. You don't need to buy a special adapter, so that's really quite cool for using on long exposures. So,
Yep.
Yes. I want to try and get a couple of more questions in, because we've got a couple more. Paul Fallac says, how do you figure out the base exposure for live comp? Very interesting question, this. And I think this is one that everybody should answer, because live comp is a two-touch, a two-shot style of photography, which is quite unusual. Well, it's actually three. One to set your base, one to take the shot, and one to stop it. So it's actually, you press the shutter 3 times for one shot. So, Thomas, I'm going to start with you. What's your best way of getting base exposures for live comp?
Well, I think we have already tackled this, but let's just repeat. Basically, what you need to do is to take a trial shot of the scenery which you are shooting. So if you are shooting, whatever, let me just show you this image. For example, if you are in Budapest, in Hungary, and you are shooting this wonderful building, then what you need to do first is to take a test shot of the building itself and say, okay, so my exposure for this will be maybe 2 seconds, 5 seconds. And once you see it perfectly exposed, then you see, okay, this is my exposure time. And this is what you will set up in the live composite mode.
Perfect.
Because then, because what is going to happen is that the first image is actually going to expose it with those 5 settings exposure, with this 5 setting exposure, which means it's going to be perfectly exposed, not underexposed, not overexposed. And then with the second pressure of the shutter release, as you mentioned, you will start shooting, and you will shoot basically unlimited number of images of 5-second exposures. So if there is some movement, like the water now is moving here, the clouds are moving, if there would be fireworks, you will all get into this, all these would get into the image, but the building will always stay the same. Unless, for example, imagine there's lots of windows, okay? So if on the first shot, one of the windows was black, and then during the shooting, somebody, opened the window and turned the light off, obviously this would appear in the image. Yeah, I'm just showing this as an example.
Good idea.
But yeah, this is exactly it. So you need to test and try the first exposure.
Great shot. Absolutely gorgeous shot, that one, by the way. And you can also
by
see
the ambassador, it's not my shot, I don't want to.
We don't want to take his. You don't want to take his glory, but actually, still a beautiful shot. Lovely water, beautiful. You've almost got starting to build up a reflection of the building, and all the ripples disappear, which is exactly what you need. And an absolutely stunning shot. PJ, any tips on that? Same.
I always took test shot, or I have analog exposure meter, old Sekonic from very old time.
And what about you, Mike?
Similar to Thomas. Basically, I'll again go to lifetime. Check things out, or go to aperture priority. That's another way to do it, and see what, if I'm shooting at f8 200 ISO, I can see what the camera's going to give me for an exposure, and that gives me an about. But I like going the lifetime route. I can press that shutter button, watch that scene appear and go, okay, that's about where I want it, and set that as my base. It changes a little bit if you're doing, like, say, star trails or things like that. Then you might want to turn your ISO up a little bit, longer exposure time, maybe 20 seconds to start out. But shooting like a cityscape or things like that, that's where I usually use lifetime to get an about.
Perfect.
You must remember, if you want to add some flash or strobe light or some torch light to your live composite, you should test this light before your long exposure, because if you add some flash on after 1 hour exposure, and it will be too bright, you blow up whole image.
You like the barn and you don't like what it looks like.
Right, exactly. And I know we're still in July. Obviously, we're still in sort of daytime mode, but these are the things to sort of practice when you have got daylight, when you can, because when you're out there and it's dark and you're trying to do live comp and lifetime and it's all very dark, now's the time to look at the camera settings when it's actually light. And another good tip is set the camera up before it gets dark. Put it outside, in the garden, wherever it is you're photographing, get everything ready, put it on a custom mode or something like that, and then all you have to do is press the shutter or the remote release. Just one quick one. iChick said, where is preview mode Mike mentioned? Are we talking...
I think we're talking about the live ND, I believe. So I don't know if Thomas, you can bring up the menu, but basically it's in your menu system under the live ND area, which I believe on the OM1 is that shooting menu 2?
Yeah.
Let me just see.
Is this good?
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So
sorry, I'm still in the...
No, I appreciate you doing that. Yeah, so here's the OM1.
Sorry, I was just not paying that much attention. What do you want me to bring up?
Nope. I'm going to show where the preview on and off is for live ND, which should be right in that area there.
There we go.
Which it may not let you see it because we're plugged in too.
Because you're plugged into HDMI. So camera settings too, it won't allow you to do it, will it? But yeah.
So let me just...
There. So live ND.
Yeah, there you go. Go back.
Great. There you
Number
go.
2.
Go back. Yeah, camera shooting 2, computational, Thomas.
I'm just moving this one. Yeah,
so it's all grayed out.
Right there.
Live ND focus tracking HDR multi-exposure, you cannot show as you are connected to HDMI.
But this is where it would be. It would be live ND shooting, and when you go to on, you'd have the option of turning on or off the preview.
Yeah,
and that's where that would be.
There. Exactly.
Actually, just one hint for everyone watching. If you somehow go into this kind of menu and whatever happens and you don't see your writings in white color and it's grayed out, then you press the OK button, and it actually helps you. It helps you. It shows you, for example, what is happening. So in this case, if I would be, for example, in the shutter priority mode, which should be okay for live ND. Now I am I was in the P mode or A mode. So if I go back to the P mode, then go to the live ND, which is grayed out. You press OK, and it tells you what's wrong. What's wrong in this case? It's not a HDMI cable that I'm connected with the camera, but it's shooting mode. So you check it out. And obviously, live ND mode you can only use when you are either in the shutter priority or whether you are in the manual mode. So, but you need to be able to set up the shutter speed. So now you can see that the live ND is obviously wide, so you can set it up, how you want to.
Perfect.
Yep, it's simulation, right? There it is.
Yeah. So it's live view simulation is what we call it. Good stuff. Okay. Has anybody else got any tips or hints before we say goodbye? I mean, obviously we all do and have done a fair bit of sort of long exposures, and it's one of those things that it comes and go with me. I absolutely love it. But what I really love is being able to hand hold a live ND in a Stockholm Underground station for 2 seconds and then just walk away. It's just the most incredible computational feature of the OM system. What about you guys? Any hot tips?
I don't have a tip. I've got a homework, because we never gave homework to anyone.
You're giving homework.
And the homework, guys, would be create something like this. Basically, this is obviously live composite. You can also use live ND, obviously. So you put the camera on the tripod, you set the live composite on, and then either you or anybody else from your family or friends, appear in front of the camera, but twice. This is one and the same person, obviously. So the way to do it, and then you will try it, obviously, later on, is that during the live composite mode, as you can shoot, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, anytime, then what you do is you put the person in front of the camera and use the flashlight. It needs to be a flashlight. If it's just a standard, a still light, the person must not move, and everybody breathes, everybody's moving. So it needs to be a flashlight. Then the person moves to a different position and you use the flashlight again. You can actually have one person in one room at 10 different places like this. So take this as a homework. It's fun. Photography is about having fun, basically. So do something like this and then share it on our Facebook, Instagram, wherever.
I love that. I love the fact that we're going to give people homework when we do an AMA session. I love it. So guys, we want to start seeing your long exposure and your and the homework that Thomas has given you. So we want to see you in 10 places all over your images. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
You should add some hashtag. We should give some hashtag like homework AMA.
Yes, so it's exactly that. So the hashtag is
there we go.
AMA, and also
That's
don't forget to tag us at OMSYSTEM.Cameras. Guys, thank you so much. Let's have a big thank you to the team at the back end that you don't see, Michaela and Christy tonight. Thank you very much. You've been amazing. Guys, always brilliant to hear your hints and tips on long exposure and everything else. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, PJ. Thank you, Thomas. We'll see you again next month. If you have any requests for AMA, if you have any ideas, you're thinking maybe we should dissect a subject, it could be something really small like histograms, white balance, you name it. We can take it apart and pull it apart, and the subject doesn't have to be so broad as a long exposure subject, but get them in, get your questions into the comments, and we can always have a look at them afterwards and see if it's worth the subject to hold an hour of our time. Keep your eyes on the events page. Lots of things going on. You guys are busy all over the world with events online and offline, but thank you all for joining me. And we'll see you all again on our next session. See you again, guys. Take care.
You, guys.
See you.
Have a good
Thanks,
life.
everybody.
See you, Claire.
Take care.
Bye-bye.